Tokay is one of the few wine regions which is a World Heritage Site. Its wines are not only consumed in Hungary but also throughout the world. What makes this wine region's excitement? Why is it unique? What makes it so special? How did the wine used to be made and how are made here today? Is it worthwhile to look at the dry wines or just keep drinking its sweet wines? Such questions will be answered in this movie. Please come with me.
Tokay is one of the world's best known and most fancied wine regions. Since 2002 it is on the World Heritage List. Kings, queens, popes and tsars adored it for centuries. Though the unique sweet wine, Tokay or Aszú, gave it its fame, nowadays we can hear more about the dry white wines of Tokay, and paramount among them, Furmint. Whilst Aszús themselves deservedly received the name liquid gold, in the meantime it's dry white wines which are the giants of the world of wines. Tokay is a fairy tale world, with forests, small lakes, semi-precious stones and monarchs everywhere. Hungary is a landlocked country in the Carpathian Basin in Central Europe. In the northeast, between latitude 48 and 49, longitude 21 and 22, Tokaj Head Alja is located. From the north it is bounded by the Zeppelin Mountains, also known as the Tokaj Mountains, while on the southeast the Bodrog and Tisa rivers flow. The best vineyards are located in the southern foothills, which are protected from the north and northwest winds by the higher peaks with woodland. From the south, these slopes are open to the riverbeds, marshes and the plain countryside. These factors ensure that the area is protected against frosts and high humidity, which is due to the high level of presence of mold botrytised cinerea that is responsible for noble rot of the grape. Tokaj viticulture and wine production have more than 1,000 years of tradition. The first trace of the grapes is from the Third Age, which is a vine leaf impression found in Erdőbény. At the end of the 10th century, the invading Magyars found a prosperous and rich vine culture at the foothills of the Zeppelin Mountains that they preserved and developed. Although botrytised wines have been produced since the 14th century, the legend dates back to the 1600s and says it happened in 1631 that the country was threatened by the Turkish invasion, and that's why the region's grape growers delayed the harvest until November. By that time, grapes had been heavily attacked by noble mold, but the Calvinist pastor, Laczko Máté Szepsy, harvested them to make wine for them anyway. He found the sugar level and the special flavour of the wine so interesting that he completed this experiment again. Then he wrote down the method and developed how to make Aszú wine. During the Austro-Hungarian War, Francis Rákóczi II, Prince of Transylvania, gave some Tokaj wine to the kings of surrounding countries as a gift to win their support. The Tokaj wine was served at the French court, where Louis XV of France ruled that the Tokaj should never be absent from his royal table. He referred to it as "C'est le roi des vins et le vin du roi," the king of wines, the wine of kings. This famous line was so durable that even the last emperor, Napoleon III, ordered an annual 30 to 40 barrels of wine from Tokaj for the royal house. Louis XV and Frederick the Great often competed with each other on which one of them could offer a higher vintage of Tokaj wine to Voltaire or Dumas. But Beethoven, Rossini, Liszt, Schubert and Goethe were also fans of Tokaj. The world's first closed wine region is Tokaj, since in exactly 737 it was defined. The first 2/3 of this century is also the golden age of Aszú making. In the 19th century, phylloxera destroyed the wines completely, The reconstruction started in 1892, and 3 main varieties were installed in American subjects route: Furmint, Harslavelu, and Yellow Muscat. Only 2/3 of the previous region were replanted. After 1945, the political and social changes had affected the Tokay wine industry as well. The small and large estates had ceased operations, and state institutions took control of the production of Tokay wines. By 1971, a central constitution took the reins of the Tokay wine production and trade. The wine cooperative bought 80% of the grape production of the countryside. The main export partner was the Soviet Union. In 1989, following the political changes, the traditional market disappeared and the wine cooperative was privatized in order to restore the old fame of Tokay wine. Having been sleeping for decades, latent forces broke to the surface with elemental power. The best had the opportunity again to prepare the best on Tokay foothills, and Tokay had indeed been reborn. What is the secret of Tokay wine? Due to the natural conditions, the cultivated vine varieties and the human factor, or the wine culture, the wines of Tokay Hedaya have a special nature. Thanks to the unique natural conditions and the mortal enemy of most of the world's wine regions, the botrytis cinerea infection is regarded as a desired blessing here. Although to varying degrees, it attacks the vineyards of Hedaya every year, and due to the favourable climatic conditions, it causes not grey but noble rot to the fruit. At Hedaya, the mould concentrates the berries to such an extent that the juice made of them can contain up to 850 grams of sugar per litre. The juice of a good quality wine contains 200 to 230 grams of sugar before fermentation. So much sweetness, and with its acid and flavouring, is concentrated in the grape juice that it is not able to fully ferment into alcohol. Of course, botrytis infection can cause noble rot of grapes in other vineyards around the world, such as in the Rhine region, in the Sauternes, Alsace and in the Loire Valley, but nowhere else in such quantity and quality as in Tokay Hedaya. Noble rot can be so perfect here that the parched berries may be, and should be, selected from the bunches. This makes such a special selection of the harvested grapes as nowhere else in the world. Until now, this special condition, the berry collecting, is the basis of the categories of the most valuable Tokay wine, the Tokay Aszú. The world-famous Tokay wine, the Aszú wine, itself is a natural sweet white wine, which is a result of a unique collaboration of various factors, and which designated the boundaries of the Tokay wine region in the most natural way. Verdant mountains protect the golden foothills from the north, blue rivers from the south. This unique location allows the vapours ascending from the rivers to create a special microclimate of the Tokay wine region for botrytis cinerea. The location of the Tokay wine region is very special. Its climate is warmer than the northern German wine regions, so at the beginning of the botrytis period, the fruit is more mature, ideally overripe. This makes a decisive difference not so much in the point of the acid load, but rather the acid composition between the Aszú, the Beerenauslese and the Trockenbeerenauslese wines. The ripeness of the grapes in the dry continental climate result in a difference in the characters between the Aszú wine and the southern natural sweet wines of the Sauternes type as well. In the well-ripened grapes with high sugar degree, botrytis life chances are not ideal. During long dry autumns at optimal parching, the mould darns the berries in the inside, converts the compound of the grapes but does not destruct or cover the berry from the outside. This form of parching made it possible that in good years the Aszú berries was not full with liquid, but almost in an elastic state, and can be picked out from the bunches berry by berry. That is why the selection of the berries can be enhanced to the extreme by means of parching. The selection of the parched Aszú berries, which is considered to be a separation of the highest level, became a general and lucrative practice on the foothills at the beginning of the 1600s. A system was thus adopted which was intended for each region, but failed to succeed anywhere apart from Tokay. The speciality of Tokay Hedaya as a wine region is also due to the crumbling rocks, which were raised by the extremely varied volcanic activity and post-activity. The terrain of the Preshov Tokay mountains and also the Tokay wine regions are extremely rugged. Low hills are heavily segmented by valleys and waterways. Although the surface evolved over millions of years and the original volcanic forms have disappeared or have changed, the volcanic origin of the landscape is evident at first sight. The volcanoes and geysers themselves operated at about 9 to 15 million years ago and created uniquely various forms of today's Tokay Hedaya rocks in Europe. Volcanic rocks were later broken and converted by the volcanic after effects, thereby increasing the variety of slope-making geological formations. In Tokay Hedaya, every era has found its own special treasure. In the New Stone Age, the highest value was the mined obsidian, which was an excellent and rare raw material to make chipped stone devices. Later, counted as a similar rarity, the uniquely beautiful three-coloured precious opal was collected on the northern part of the mountains. From the Middle Ages, gold and silver production was typical in the mines of Telkibanya, which had national importance from the 14th century. Non-metallic mineral mining began near Sharosh Patak in the 15th century, where quartzite was mined for carving millstones. From the beginning of the 19th century, industrial development meant a boom of mining for other minerals: kaolin, bentonite, rhyolite and andesite. As a result of volcanic aftereffects, sources erupted, used to give the base of warm baths, which are very rare now, though at the beginning of the 20th century a great number of them attracted guests to the foothills. The various locations not only differ in their climates, but their dormant strength. Each vineyard contains different minerals in different amounts and releases the dark soul of chilled volcanoes differently. In some places the stone is crumbling and nourishes the vine, elsewhere a million years have not scraped anything from them for the plants. Today, the most important grape varieties in Tokay are Furmint, Harsh Levelu, Yellow Muscat, Cuvée Soleil, Zeta, also known as Eremus, Kabar and Goher. Besides white varieties, nowadays there are some sellers with Pinot Noir wines, and these are currently allowed to be bottled as regional wine by law. Up to the Second World War, stake-style cultivation was typical in Tokay Hedaya. The vines were scattered, located in rows 65 centimeters apart from each other on average. That's why there were areas where 25,000 vines were planted in 1 acre. After the phylloxera infection, the grapes were planted in rows for easier cultivation. The spacing has increased to 1.2 meters, so the number of vines was reduced to 7,000 per acre. After World War II, nationalised areas were shaped to the size of the cultivating machines. At the time, it was not uncommon to have only 2,500 vines per acre. After privatisation, reinstalling returned to the density, an average of 5 to 7,000 of the vines per acre, and the cultivation method has changed. The wineries seeking for quality grow their grapes with the traditional but very difficult cultivation, using 40 to 50 centimetre high canopies and short pin pruning. This cultivation method combines easier processing and the heat advantage and warming effect of the soil and rocks. Another guarantee for quality is the conscious yield limit, the green work. Setting the number of shoots and clusters are very important in several aspects. First, it gives the foliage more air and sun. Second, thinning the vines reduces the yield and sets the bunch weight per shoot. While fruits from large-scale plantations reach 150 to 200 quintals per acre in the past, today, carefully sorting wineries leave often less than 1 kilogram of perfect grapes on the vines, so that 40 to 50 quintals of grapes are harvested per acre. The less a cluster has to nourish, the more flavour and aroma can be concentrated. The crop from yield-limited vines and the wines made from it are a lot more concentrated, thicker and more complex in flavour than the overlaid ones. It is worth searching for wineries who cultivate their vineyards with this philosophy. Fortunately, now we find more and more of these again. In the world's great natural sweet wine producing regions, there are typically 2, maximum 4 or 5 names of wine categories to learn for the consumer. In contrast, only in Tokay Aya, the number of sweet wine specialties runs up to 7. Sweet Samorodny, Botrytised, Aszú, 3, 4, 5, 6 Puttonyos and Essence. The varieties are expanded by the late harvest wines, 2 dry wine specialties made of Aszú berries, dry Samorodny and Maaslash, and the novelty of the varietal dry wines. Traditional wine on offer in Tokay Aya seems uniquely complicated at first glance. Today, however, it is becoming clearer and clearer. Tokay wineries now express the values of Tokay Aya within 3 categories. These are dry varietal wines, late harvest wines and Aszú wines. Let's look at the main criteria of the major categories. Dry winemaking methods are the same as traditional methods of making white wine in other parts of the world. The winery and the grape variety of course determine the technique to produce completely reductive wine, by fermentation in steel tanks without barrel fermentation, or by storing the wine in barrels for long months. Sometimes these 2 are applied together. The main point here is sorting and processing fully matured, healthy bunches free of botrytis. Though the producers try to keep Aszú berries away from the wine, the appearance of the fine flowers are not uncommon as reference marks. The range is rather wide. Besides the Burgundy type, thick, soil-centric wines that are faithful to the terroir and variety, lush, floral scented and light but dynamic wines can be found as well. From the beginning of the 16th century, Samorodny or prime wine has been produced. It was the most popular wine type of the foothills for a long time. Poles were its biggest fans. They universalized the Samorodny name in the 1820s in Hungary, which was made over several decades. The Polish word Samorodny means as it is grown. The Samorodny is pressed from those bunches which contain significant amounts of Aszú berries, and out of which a wine can be made that is richer in content than the average ones. These dried bunches are processed as they ripen on the vine, so Aszú berries are not picked out from them. Besides the higher alcohol level and dry matter content, Samorodny wines usually contain a significant amount, up to 100-120 grams or more of sugar. In this case we are talking about sweet Samorodny. When the percentage of the Aszú berries are not high enough in the pressed clusters and the sugar content is allowed to ferment in its entirety, dry Samorodny is born. Based on its alcoholic and analytical values, the quality of Samorodny is higher than ordinary wines. Creating dry Samorodny is a separate matter in the viticulture of Tokay. Lasting often for years, its maturation needs high care. Some cellars let dry Samorodny lay waste, which means the barrel is not completely filled. In this case, just like with Fino sherry, yeast may appear on the surface of the Samorodny, forming a thin membrane over time. This phenomenon and the dry taste of Samorodny explain why some compare Tokay to the sherry. Confusion is generated by comparing it, when you forget to add that this similarity is typical for only one, and in addition, not the most important Tokay wine, and there are just some similar technological elements, but that's all. An important difference to sherry, however, is that dry Samorodny is made from botrytis-infected grapes, without the addition of alcohol. Unfortunately, in recent years, dry Samorodny almost completely disappeared from the market, and is only now beginning to become more interesting again. Late harvest is a relatively new category of Tokay Aya. It is a new philosophy and approach to the botrytis wines, because this category means not only a late harvest time, but some Aszú berries as well. It is a stylistically fresh, dynamic, vibrant, and often expressively intense noble sweet wine. Its sugar content varies widely. The sweetness is regulated by different bunch parts. The more botrytis there is, the sweeter the wine. The goal is to find the perfect balance, which varies according to the different varieties, soil, the vintage of the wine and viticulturists' own philosophy. That's why the world of late harvest wines is so diverse. Its making may vary by winery, but because of the high level of concentration and the ratio of Aszú berries, the fermentation of the grape juice takes longer, up to 30 days. To preserve the fruitiness, it is usually given a shorter maturation time in oak barrels, but it is necessary. Some of them reach the Aszú 5 puttonyos concentration as well. Hungary's most famous product is the Tokaj Aszú. The Aszú word itself means dried or parched. In the 16th century, the wine was called wine with Aszú grapes. With the highest levels of processing of the Aszú berry, the most concentrated category can be achieved: the essence, a unique wine that keeps its value and fineness for hundreds of years. It is also the world's most extreme, rarest, and most unique wine. It is a precious treasure to serious collectors. The first step in the preparation is picking out the Aszú berries from the bunches and then collecting them in tubs. Since farmers often harvest over several days, the hundreds of quintals of Aszú berries spend a long time in the tubs. During this time, nectar drops fall under from the Aszú berries, weighing on each other. Conceiving this leaking substance, it is what gives the essence. 1 acre of grapes yields only a few bottles of essence. To 1 litre of essence, the work of 15 to 20 Aszú berry selecting people is required. This treasure is stored in glass carboys and ferments over many years with very little alcohol content in the incredibly thick, almost honey-like level of concentration. If it is also fermented in barrel, it is usually held in a half barrel called an átalag. After the essence, Aszú wines are the next in terms of concentration. Traditionally, the concentration of the wine itself was defined by 2 instruments, the gunc cask and the puttony. The puttony is a classical device used for harvesting, carried on the back, in which about 27 kilograms of Aszú berries fit. In its volume, it is 1/5 of a 136-litre gunc cask. To obtain the inherent values of the Aszú, new wine or grape juice is used. Depending on the quantity of the Aszú berries added to 1 cask of grape juice or new wine, we can talk about 3, 4, 5 or 6 puttonyos Aszú. Today, however, instead of puttony quantity, the puttony number on the wine label is determined on the basis of natural sugar content, which is still related to the ratio of the Aszú berries. In case of these wines, many years of barrel fermentation is the provision of the law. The aim is to achieve the perfect balance. Besides high sugar content, the preservation of a vibrant acidity as well as a broad spectrum of aroma and flavour is needed. Thus makes Tokaj Aszú wines uniquely graceful, incredibly focused and very elegant instead of a sticky, sweet liquid. Tokaj is also the country's largest oak woodland, so the neighbourhood also has several excellent cooperages. Over the past 15 years, besides winemaking, barrel making has gone through a dramatic process, and our coopers have become some of the best coopers in the world. Barrel making starts with the selection of trees to have a good wood material. The Zemplén oak is one of the best raw materials in Hungary. Having been cut, the logs are cleft in order to achieve the highest quality. After the selection, the staves are put onto each other for airing and dried for 2 to 3 years in open air. Due to the weather and the rains, a large part of the tannins and impurities leave the wood. Then the cooper puts the staves one by one into the tire, so the final shape forms a barrel. The most spectacular and one of the most difficult parts of the process is the roasting, when the barrel style is created according to the wine and the buyer's request. During roasting, different flavour compounds are formed, and the oak's tannin stock its tanning material stock changes. Because of the roasting process, spicy flavours to dark chocolate, mocha and tobacco markings are scope for the cooper. Concerning the wine, a good barrel is just as important as the excellent grapes. The intensive interaction between the wine and barrel helps with micro-oxidation so as to achieve a deeper, more complex character in the final wine aroma and flavour.
In the following, those cellars are presented which can certainly not make you disappointed during your visit to Tokay.
My winery was founded in 1996 in order to be directly involved in rediscovering and also acquainting myself with Tokay wines and wine regions. I gathered the professional basis partly at the University of Horticulture Budapest, partly in the United States, France and Great Britain. From 1993, I participated in the life of the Tokay wine region in starting and running different foreign-owned wineries. In the first year of my company, I made wine from grapes of our family farm vineyards in Charter-Aya Uihe with the traditional instruments of our wine cellar. In the following years I purchased several lands in the Tokay wine region. Serelmi vineyard in Tokay, Veres in Mad, Közép Hill in Radka, Kakash and Lapish vineyards in Bodrog Keresztül. Nowadays I work on vineyards in the outskirts of 5 towns, at 7 vineyards, nearly on 7 acres. In the centre of the town of Tokay, in the basement of a historic house built in 1790, I store my wines in a maturing and fermentation cellar. Taking advantage of my opportunities, I strive to make vineyard selected items from different vineyards. I prepare 3 versions of wines. In my point of view, only those can clearly relate a specification, which is the characteristic of the region. These are dry wines, prime and Aszú wines. By extremely limiting the yield, understanding the best possible maturity, and revealing the variety and richness of the vineyards, I tried to help Tokay return to the world map of viticulture. The family has produced wine since the 16th century in the Tokay wine region. Since then, generations have been waiting for the spring and the Furmint to bud, and keep hoping to have a long sunny autumn, which is the best way for noble rot to come about. After the political changes of 1989, the estate began to thrive again. Today, 14 vineyards with the Bodrog Keresztül, Tartsel, Radka and Mad villages produce grapes on 46 acres, of which only 50,000 bottles of wine are made every year. The wines are dry Furmint and harsh Levelu, late harvest, sweet Somorodny and Aszú 6 Puttonyos. At the Szepsys, the whole family worked together, as it has been happening throughout the previous centuries, transferring the experience and especially the love of the land and the vineyards to the younger generation. In the winery, on stony zeolite soil, small, loose clusters of vines produce grapes, which were deployed by the predecessors in the 1930s and 1950s. But there are younger plants, which are between 5 and 50 years old. The basic principle of today's wine growing is the regulation of the production balance for each and every vine stock to be able to make the best of it. It is about the ever-changing and renewing consistency of the soil, sunlight, air, the vine and man who controls the feelings and thinking. Due to the will, knowledge, hard but willingly done work, a new level of quality is displayed in wine. The visitors love to go to the vineyards to see the sunrise over the river Bodrog, sit under a flowering vine, or see how the sunshine glows through a yellowing berry in the Kirai vineyards in September. To feel what scents are at the top of the urban vineyard in the morning, or what eternity can be found among the canopies of the 60-year-old St. Thomas vineyard. Predecessors have created a productive culture in hundreds, perhaps even a few thousand years. After the war, it was demolished and almost completely lost to today's generations. So Szepsy's task is to rebuild this region again, so that the real value of creation is increasingly being displayed in a glass of wine. There is nothing more to reach than consciously, constantly going for perfection. Oremus, the cradle of noble wine. In Oremus vineyards, Furmint, Harsh Levelu, Zeta and yellow muscat can be seen everywhere, and at harvest berries are just as carefully selected as they were centuries ago. Tripping along the soil among the trachytos and rhyolitic stones, centuries go by in one's imagination. The vine Oremus bore its commanding Latin name in the transborder letters from the 16th century. It means "let us pray," and from the 17th century it was a jewel of the Prince Rákóczi family. In 1993, Tokaj Oremus Vineyard and the winery was established as the investment of the famous red wine of Spain, Vega Sicilia and the Hungarian state. Duties of the viticulturist, canopy management, fertilizing, irrigation and controlling pests, are for the sake of the excellent harvest both in old and newly planted vineyards. Rigorous pruning are followed by shoot selection first, then several cluster selections. A lot of effort for a single goal: to find delicious aromas and perfect richness in those 5 or 6 clusters per vine. That is an essential starting point for the wines of Oremus. Without Aszú berries, Oremus cannot exist. Harvest always begins in late October, when the sun ripening the honey-sweet bunches, and then a mystical miracle will occur. With the help of a well-timed rain or the morning dew, Botrytised cinerea appears, the noble rot that covers the grapes. The drying winds and the golden sunlight cause the berries to wrinkle and parch into Aszú berries. This is a true alchemy in nature's chemistry. The wines of Oremus are born in the mixture of modern and ancient tradition. The Aszú wines of Oremus crown the moments of a meal or a celebration. Being paired with desserts and fruity cakes, they give a special experience, but they can also be excellently associated with goose liver or blue cheese. The complex flavour, the unique acid-sugar balance, turns these fine wines into unique drinks. They can be elegant aperitifs or a drink for conversations with friends. A vital element and the feeder of all of us, it is the motherland. For us, the Tokay wine region is a small village of Radka. Just as our vines and the volcanic rocks, we have also rooted here. The beauty of the landscape, the power of the stones and the native wines give energy to viticulture. Winemaking is easy to do. We allow the character of our vineyards to prevail with the help of nature. The family farm of 20 hectares is at the slopes of Mad and Radka, on Ishten Hill, Paddy Hill, Medjesh, Kozép Hill, Kavesh Uraj and Dorgo. We believe that the beautiful rocks lying on vineyards are not only beautiful, but they help Tokay wines to be mineral, complex and exciting. We are very proud of our fossils, because besides the imprints of plant stems, we have found so many other things. leaves, fish or snails. Often petrified wood or chips lie at the foot of the vine. Furmint is considered to be our main type because it has so many faces and is suitable to express the characters of our slopes, but I can tell that harsh Levallois and yellow muscat will soon be bottled. Aside from Tokay varieties, Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc are also prepared and being issued as the regional wine of Zemplén. Wines from the Arvai family winery are displayed with new aprons. They will get to the consumer's table with new labels. Our goal is simple: to make jolly wines. Isabel's Wax Winery, a real little jewel box in the heart of Tokay. The dry wines of Dobogo Winery have high acidity and mineral spicy aroma and taste, while the sweet wines are able to provide the highest level of wine experience. The late harvest sweet wines feature a lively fruitiness which is combined with deep flavour and aroma in the case of matured Aszú wines. With more than 100 years of history, the success story of Dobogo's cellar began in 1995 when it joined to the winery owned by the Isabel's Wax. Viticulture started, which has used the most advanced technologies while still remaining faithful to the traditions of Tokay. The speciality of the winery is the Aszú 6 Puttonyos. It is made from carefully selected first-class Aszú berries of multiple harvests of the Tokay slopes and bottled after more than 3 years of storage in oak barrels. The wine has a full and complex aroma. During tasting, due to the extreme richness and nutritional content, it gives a creamy, almost oily feeling. So does the 2004 Aszú 6 Puttonyos, the gold medalist at the International Wild Challenge 2009, which also won the trophy of Central and Eastern European sweet wines at the Decanter World Wine Awards. Then at the Panon Wine Muster, it received the top wine classification. Since its birth in 2003, dry Furmint has always been one of the true conquests of white wines. The 2007 vintage was bottled as the cellar's first slope-selected wine from the Tokay Hill Serelmi vineyard. If someone likes the wine region and the Furmint, this wine should not be accidentally left out, since you will be richer with a special aroma experience. The sweet Furmint with natural sugar content got the special sounding name Mylita. It is made from late harvest clusters rich in already dried grapes. Mylita, who was the Babylonian goddess of love, was also reflected in the poems of the Hungarian Endre Ady, since she is no less than the poet's lover and muse, Maria Zwak. The smell of the wine is highly complex, fruity. Its taste is full and lively, a specifically creamy drink. Our goal is to preserve the special terraced area of the old Kirai Hill and Mad for the future generations, both in appearance and soil, as much as possible in the most original form. Since the land slept through the decades of using chemicals without limits, its soil is still intact. During viticulture, our aim is to use organic techniques. We do weeding with hoes and reaping the fields with scythes. We strive for the same purity in winemaking. We work with minimal technical interference, maximum purity and organic methods during preparing wines. All items are spontaneously fermented in barrels. Due to our extremely flexible technology, each and every barrel of wine receives individual care. It is important that our wines reflect the specific characteristics of their provinces. The soil, vineyard location, vintage year, weather conditions and other winemakers' personality should be displayed in a unique and unrepeatable wine. The centre of the winery is the Aspremont Rákóczi mansion in Mad. With its historic past and appearance, it is a worthy companion to the vineyard of Öreg Király Hill. It was built probably in the 16th to 17th century, gradually becoming more and more significant, and eventually grew into an aristocratic mansion in Baroque style. Archival data shows that in January and March 1708, Ferenc Rákóczi slept here several times. The building has undergone several renovations. By the time of the early 1700s, it had reached its present form, which is due to Juliana Rákóczi and her husband, Count Ferdinand Gobert Aspamo. According to its old age, the house was built with stone, metre-thick walls, but the Baroque style is reflected in the wall cabins, the floor deposited in a special way, the wall paintings, stuccos and paintings. The cellar is the only part of the house which should be almost completely rebuilt. Today it houses the processing room as well. Through this we can get to an over 150 metre long basement, which may be as old as the house. The cellar is partly rock cut, arched with bright coloured stones. Its insulation and ventilation system remained intact, so today's winemaking technology is also broadly consistent with the hygiene requirements. By autumn 2010, on the ground floor of the mansion, a tasting room will have been established for hospitality, as well as a wine kitchen and a wine shop as well. Hopefully, the mansion will also be reborn in its appearance. The Dísnóca winery, one of the largest and finest pieces of land in the Tokay wine region, which has been considered as a first-class vineyard since 1732, is on the UNESCO World Heritage List and is believed to be one of the best production sites of the Tokay wine region. Since 1992, with the help of Aszú Milisim, the Dísnóca has played a leading role in the Tokay wine renaissance, which manifests itself in the search for the perfect balance between the production site, the clean flavours of the vintage, the fruit flavour, the freshness, and the richness and depth of the vines due to the noble rot. The prime wines of Dísnóca have been recognised by the wine professionals with a number of national and international excellence awards. The most important of them are the dry Furmint, the late harvest, and the Tokay Aszú 5 Puttonyos. In the past, the Dísnóca was owned by the great Hungarian aristocratic families. Count Meinhard Lónyay, former Prime Minister of Hungary, built the Yellow Wine House in the mid-19th century in neoclassical style, which is one of the best restaurants in the country. The buildings of the new wine cellar with the rock-hewn cellar with oak barrels combine the age-old tradition with modern technology. It is also one of the finest examples of modern Hungarian architecture, Dejeu Éclair, the evil-winning architect's work. The visitors can familiarise themselves with the production of Tokay prime wines with the help of multilingual guides all year round. You can walk in the vineyards, the stone walls and terraces, and learn about the stages of viticulture and winemaking technology. In the cellar of the Yellow Wine House, you can taste the old prime wines made here. For those who would like to have a personal experience spending time with family or friends and getting acquainted with the special terroir, we offer a unique tour with a picnic to explore the region's prominent places. It is possible to have personal special wine tastings and food dishes at the Yellow Wine House restaurant. Renewed and refreshed in its interior, the restaurant welcomes its guests with fresh supplies and with fresh local ingredients according to the season. Founded in 2000, Patricius Winehouse was brought to life by Kékesi family for their vocation for the future of the wine. The family's ancestors on the mother's side were well-known viticulturists from the 18th century in Tokay Hédai, and besides also performed major functions in the area's life. At the border of the 5 villages, on 7 vineyards, Teleki, Shaigo, Bendes, Lapish, Várhill, Sigan and Szárhill, viticulture happens on 85 acres of land. The variety of the slopes can be well tracked in the wine's flavours as well. It is important for them to do slope-selected processing and maturation. They are convinced that the key determinant of the quality of wine is grape quality, so strive for the potential in a production site as much as possible. One key element is limiting the quantity of the crop. The winery is located at the outskirts of Botrytised in the picturesque countryside of Várhill, among the vineyards. The former press house is likely to have been built in the 18th century. With the preservation and renovation of the existing building, a new modern estate centre was raised in 2005. In the new landscape-fitting 3-story building, an underground grape processor works with gravity. It is very gentle and preserves the values of the chemical composition of grapes as much as possible. After gravity processing, they fragment their wines from their own crops in slope-selected cellars with lots of good work, which follow rich features of the slopes. An important cornerstone of their philosophy is to get acquainted with the slopes features from vintage to vintage and rebuild a centuries-old knowledge, which was lost after the war. The blending of each item's complexity, harmony and balance are the main points to achieve. In excellent vintages, the products from the top vineyards are marketed slope-selected. The feedback and the awards from domestic and international contests show the uniqueness and quality of Patricius wine. After changing ownership at the beginning of 2009, our winery has been working with a completely new appearance in the centuries-old Tokay casino building. They are located in 16 vineyards of the Tokay wine region on 50 hectares. In Mad, Biershalmash Hill, Kovesh Hill and St. Thomas Hill, in Radka, Paddy Hill, Ishton Hill and Kuzeip Hill have particular importance. We have Furmint and yellow muscat from the Medve Hill in the Bodrog Karastur. We take the raw material of Zemplain's Chardonnay from the 30-year-old vineyard of Medier Hill in Sharosh Patak, and the fruit to Sauvignon Blanc comes from Kirai Hill. The uniqueness of the loess soil of the Tokay region can be tasted in the wines from the Serelmi, Teleki and Sarbash slopes. In addition to the traditional Tokay varieties, Furmint, Harsh Levelu, Yellow Muscat, we have planted Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir varieties, which will be harvested in 2011. Past experience has shown that these world types, grown in Tokay Hedaya, produce much more interesting and complex wines, and reveal an unusual taste and aromatic fragrance to the consumer world. To our Tokay winery, the hundreds of years old casino gives place. Architecturally, we have extended it to be suitable for grape processing. We have 3 levels using the opportunities of gravity to simplify the correspondent technological steps. The first line items are compressed on the upper level by small 10 to 22 HL presses and put them into 230 to 500 litre fermentation barrels. The lower quality wines go to fermentation tanks and are only partly fermented in oak barrels. The vintage variety, geographic features, all have an influence in the viticulture action. The protocol we have created aligns to the factors every year. Our goal, the wine should reflect the characteristics of the production sites, of course considering the consumer needs. Our winery, our young viticulturist and sommelier, and the new administration work with all their strength to make Tokay and the name Christian Szauszka inseparable from each other. They hope it will be familiar among wine lovers within a short time. Count Degenfeld Winery was named after its current owners, the Degenfeld aristocratic family, who were among Hungary's most important noble families from the mid-1800s. Like many other noble families, the Degenfelds significantly bounded to Tokay Hedaya. In the town of Tokay, they had a number of real estate properties. Their vineyards were located on the southern slopes in the so-called soul of the Tokay mountain, in Nod Solo and its surrounding area. As a founding member, Count Imre Degenfeld took part in the work of the Tokay Hedaya Grape and Viticulture Association. The current vineyard is one of the few estates whose roots goes back deep into the history of the Tokay Hedaya. Lands at the border of 3 villages give the backbone of the vineyard. At Tartsal, Teresia Hill and Meza Shmal slopes. At Mezozumbur, Galambash vineyard. At Mad, the Kakashok, the Cox. Having chosen ecological viticulture and winemaking, and being faithful to the family tradition, the nobility is an obligation, Count Degenfeld Vineyard works with uncompromising quality. Spur pruning, which constitutes 1 fruiting bud per cane. Shoot setting, which means 2 folding per vine. Strict yield limit, 4 to 6 clusters per vine. Early defoliation, which means growing the bunch in the sunshine. Soil work by hand, no use of chemicals. Late selected vintage, which means the harvest of overripened grapes. Using own production of grapes and Aszú berries. Delicate grape processing to have a low quality of juice. Using natural materials in winemaking. Physical methods of achieving wine stability. Cold, sterile bottling. Bottle and oak barrel fermentation. Emphasis and presentation on values of slopes. Maintain traditions. Tokaj has 55 hectares of contiguous land on the south-facing slopes of the town of Tokay. The Hétszülő vineyard, which constitutes the core of the estate, has more than 500 years of history. Among the owners there were aristocrats, royal families. Gábor Bethlen and the Rákóczi family also made wine here. In 2009, the estate was acquired by the French investor Michel Ribière and became the sister estate of the prestigious Côte d'Esternel, Bordeaux, as a member of the Domaine Ribière wine group. The specialty of Tokaj Hétszülő wines comes from the Tokaj's first-class slopes classified as Premier Cru in 1772. The volcanic subsoil is greatly covered by a thick layer of loess here, which gives inimitable structure and unique flavour to the wine. The Tokaj Hétszülő uses only its own grapes for wines, which are organic and grown as naturally as possible. The main types are Furmint, Harsh Leveleux, Cauverselleux, and also Yellow Muscat. Wines from these include Tokay Aszú 3, 4 and 5 Puttonyos or Cauverselleux Feubourg 1999. The latter was the finest wine with the highest quality before Aszú was developed. In good years, the wine from processing indiscriminately harvested, dried bunches of grapes reached the later Aszú quality. Cauverselleux is an old variety from Transylvania, which has been grown for centuries in the Tokay wine region. While tasting the wine, a special flavour and aroma unfolds before you. Its aroma is perhaps the closest to the young lime Aszú flavours. Its sweetness is equivalent to an Aszú 5 Puttonyos, but nicely balanced by its acidity. At Tokaj Hétszülő Winery, tradition incorporates modern technology, so besides the special flavour of Tokaj and Hétszülő terroir, the wines here are typically fruity and harmonious. The winery offers dry wines as well as late harvest drinks and Aszú wines, known for their many decades of maturation potential. This elegance, complexity and delicacy have testified the exclusive value of Tokaj Hétszülő. Their wines are considered as some of the best wines around the world.
Now there is nothing else to do but to visit Tokaj and taste the dry and the sweet wines. Enjoy!